This is Boxing Tickets, and we are delighted to be joined on Fight Week once again with Jay Byrne of JB Promotions. Jay, before we obviously get into the nitty gritty, obviously of Fight Week, it's probably it'd be fair to say in some ways probably this been probably one of the toughest cards you probably had to put together. Obviously, at the very start, it was obviously looking like it was potentially going to be three title fights. You obviously couldn't get one for Paul Loonam. Obviously, Miles Casey then decided not to take it. You obviously Peter Carr and Jason Harty in the card and down to one title fight. So, like, probably a lot in the background, probably going on that people don't see.
Yeah, it was a bit of a disaster, all right. Yeah, the Miles and Paul was the strangest one of the lot. That fight was 99% agreed before he had his fight in the stadium. He was to go in, win that fight over 6 rounds. He was eligible. Approved the fight for the Celtic title with Paul. Paul went up to the stadium that night to watch him. I went there to watch him. Ian was there to watch him. And it was all agreed. And to be honest, he messed up himself by not winning the fight. However, the BUI still approved it because he didn't lose. So then when we went to reach out, all of a sudden now, after Miles going on an interview and saying that he'd fight Mike Tyson and he'd fight everybody and anybody and he can't get a fight at his weight, we offered him a Celtic title fight at his weight, but now we needed a fight or two at the weight first before he fought for the title. So he didn't want the fight. It was as simple as that. You can't sit in an interview on a Friday and say you'll fight anybody, you'll fight Mike Tyson, you'll fight anybody and everybody, and you'll fight. You can't get fights at your weight, so you have to keep fighting above your weight. Yeah, here's the Celtic title fight opportunity against someone at your weight. It's not Mike Tyson, and he refused it. To me, it didn't make any sense. It was silly. And we thought he'd all messed it up by not winning the fight. However, he got a lifeline. And to be honest with you, Miles a good lad. Like he's been around a long time, and he's mixed in circles of some of the greats in the country. He used to be in my gym sparring with Deco a lot. Then he was always sparring with Katie Taylor, and that he's won elite championships. So I'm not disrespecting the guy or anything like it, but you got to think before you speak. If you're going to go out on a Friday night in an interview and say you'll fight anybody in the country, you'll fight Mike Tyson, you can't get fights at your weight, and then someone comes and puts a Celtic title in front of you at that weight that you want to get fights at, and you refuse it, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So again, we had to move on. It was disappointing for Paul because, as I said, the fight was agreed. All Miles had to do was win, and it was gone. As far as we were concerned, it was over the line. Money was agreed. Everything was agreed, and then it just didn't happen. So, okay, Paul has a decent opponent, Rakesh Lochab. He's been in with some good guys, a good record, and it's a step up for Paul. It's a step up that Paul will come through. I'm very confident. But it is a step up for Paul. It's a good winning record on Paul's record. And, we can't hold Paul back. It was like we'll have one or two fights and then we can look at it. We're not going to put Paul's career on hold for anybody. So we have plans for Paul, and this one now is his first step up. And then he'll be 4-0 finishing the year, which is great because he only went pro in the middle of the year. So next year we already have plans for early in the year for Paul. So we'll just draw a line in the sand on that one and we'll move.
Obviously, Jamie Conlon, obviously after their show in the SSE, it obviously mentioned potentially of like a prize fighter fight tournament. I guess in some ways you'll obviously have your vision for obviously where you want Paul to go. I don't think Jamie's promotionally aligned with Farrell or any of the rest in there. So I guess it's a win-win sort of for them. So like, would Paul be open to the idea of like a prize fighter tournament, or are you happy with the progress that you're making with him that you can get him the title fights and get him that transition probably by the end of 2025 that he wants?
Paul will be very happy with it. He already rang me about it when he heard Jamie's interview. Says I'd school every single one of them over 3 rounds. And I'm sure he would as well because that was his game, wasn't it? He was an international amateur boxer over 3 rounds. So a 3-round prize fighter competition for Paul, who's one of the fittest boxers in this country, if not the fittest. So I don't see an issue with it, but does it benefit Paul's career? I don't think it does. I think it's too risky. You go into a 3-round fight and, you have a bad start to the first round, you lose the first round, you're chasing your arse really quickly. And I don't think Jamie's going to do it down the south. I'd say it'd be up the north against Matty, Conor Kerr, Farrell. Maybe if Farrell gets into it, I don't think he will. I'd say he's gone past that. You're looking at Paul going in the away corner into a competition where he's 3 rounds to win. I don't see the benefit. I said that to Paul. I don't see the point. I don't see the benefit. It's a great concept. A really, really big fan of the concept. And fair play to Jamie for suggesting it, because it is a great concept. But for Paul, yeah, I'd have to put him as favourite in that competition. But you just have to look at Conor Kerr. Conor Kerr was an elite amateur, and he went into a pro fight with Rudy twice, and he got beaten twice. A good amateur over 3 rounds doesn't really do it in the pros all the time. And I personally think 3 rounds is just too close. Like, you look at Conor there, he's lost his last 2 fights. So Paul was to win against a Conor who was an elite amateur. It makes a level. It puts it on a straight level playing field. Where if that was over 6-8 rounds, I think Paul beats him all day, because Paul is adapting to the amateur game really well. His fitness levels, his engine is really, really good. So again, we'll have a look at it, see what the pros and cons are of it, and sit with Paul and his team and go through it. But ideally, I'd like Paul to have a belt or 2 by the end of April, to be honest.
I guess in some ways the old concept also would have been three round fights. Obviously, I think that more of like the golden contract sort of thing, where it can be like 8 or 10 round fights. Because I think he said maybe potentially, by the final, then you'll obviously have an Irish title on the line. In some ways, it'd be good if it worked out. Say, for instance, in a draw for Paul, that say if it was 2 semi-finals, and the final semi-final he fought for the Celtic title, and then obviously the final, then probably mixed with different cards. But like, you're pumping out shows, Jay. This is your 6th show of 2024 now on Friday. Like, you're pumping out the volume of the shows. So probably in some ways it doesn't make any difference to you, because you're constantly making shows, you're constantly getting Paul out in shows. So like, it's still effectively in a way like a prize fighter tournament for Paul, because the card's still there. Like you're saying, by the end of April, you could potentially, be Celtic and an Irish champion. So it doesn't sort of change for you.
Well, if it was a concept of like a Super Six where you fought a 6 or an 8 rounder on, say, a 6 rounder in the quarter final and a 8 rounder in the semi final and a 10 rounder in the final or something like that, yeah, that would entertain me. I would definitely be interested in that. I just feel when you're building a guy up and he's hit 4-0 or 5-0 or whatever it may be, by the time this tournament can start, if you're putting them into a 3-minute round prize fighter competition, I think it's very risky. I think it's very, very risky. You don't get the rub of the green in 1 round. You're fighting to get 2 rounds, and you're under big pressure. You know what I mean? So, if the first round's hit and miss, and you have no feeling out process, you literally got to go for it. And if it was a concept like Super Six or whatever it may be, I'd be definitely interested in that. And again, I know we run shows and we run a lot of shows and the whole lot, but I've no issue with the lads boxing on their shows. It doesn't bother me at all in the slightest. I'm happy to get them out onto other shows. Once it makes sense, that I'm happy. There's no issue whatsoever. And we've worked with Conlons throughout the year, and we've not had any issues. It's good guys to deal with, and there's no issue. So I'd be happy to have the lads. If the concept suited and Paul's team were happy and Paul was happy, now I could advise Paul and say, look, I wouldn't be happy with the prize fighter if it was a 3-3, and Paul and his team could say, no, Jay, we want it. We feel he's good enough to win it, which I would be swaying towards Paul in that concept, and 100%. But again, I just feel I always have to think worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is you go up there, you have a close first round, and you get robbed in the away corner against a Belfast boy in Belfast in the 2nd or 3rd round. You've lost your record. Not that always mean fuck all, but when you're on a pathway to achieving, a title or 2 and things like that, it does set you back, and you have to start again. So that's my thoughts on the team. But if Paul and his coaching team voted for it against me, well, I can only give my opinion. That's the way I work with all my fighters. I don't call the shots. At the end of the day, I'm his manager. I work for him. He's the boxer. He hires me as his manager. He hires his coaching team. So if he picks that he wants to do it, and his coaching team pick he wants to do it, and I say I would prefer if he didn't, it's 2v1. They win, not me.
Exactly. obviously on Friday night, obviously Dago obviously headlines a card against Jake Tinklin, what obviously we've seen earlier this year. Obviously fought Senan for the Celtic title at super lightweight. We're correct.
Yeah.
You've obviously known Dago obviously a long time, and like I know obviously Dago's won a belt outside of the sort of domestic scene. I think it was like a UBO belt or something like that, or UB40 belt. Obviously a belt that probably doesn't mean a lot to him in some ways. So like this will be obviously a proud moment for obviously Deco to become Celtic champion. Like I know he's been past these levels in the past, but like this will obviously be something that'll be personal. It'll mean something to Deco.
Yeah, I think it's a prime example of what I said. I think it was on day one, sitting in the warehouse doing my first press conference. I don't think fighters should be skipping belts. I think you should start at the bottom and work your way up because it gets you nothing but experience along the way. And Deco was a fantastic amateur boxer. It was one of the best the country had at the time, if not the best. And he went pro, and all the talk with Deco at the time was he was going to bring back the next Bernard Dunn days and this and that and the other. And he built, and all of a sudden it was European titles and things like that. He never picked up the domestic titles, and he fell short at them European levels. And he's coming to the latter part of his career, and he really, in theory, had nothing to show for it. For a man that gave so much to the amateur sport, then he got so much years to the pro sport, Deck was a pro 10 years now, if I remember correctly. I think it was 2014 when he went
Yeah.
pro. And, he's 10 years of pro, and in theory, he has nothing to show for. He hasn't won domestic titles. He's fallen short at the, European level and things like that. So for me, he was a personal friend of mine. And I met him when I first came into boxing, and I've been personal friends with him since. It's an honor for me to be able to, and a pleasure for me to be able to deliver the latter part of his career. And I hope, because I feel if Deco had went out of sport last November when he said, I felt he would have always had regret in his career. I felt he would have always had the what if in his head. And there's a lot of people that leave the sport and leave actual sport, not just boxing, underachieved, and they feel hard done by, and that can play on their mind for a long time. And things like that, can play with your mind, play with your mental health and stuff. So I actually feel if Deco can get this title next week,
This weekend.
and this week coming, yeah, sorry. If he can get a title this week, and there's potentially another bigger fight ready for him, but he has to come through this week, and then he's going into a fight again where it's he's putting it all on the line in this fight, and he could, if he comes through and he keeps his head down, he does everything by the book. He's a big task ahead of him, but if he does come through it, he could retire. I know he's planning on of definitely getting out. I think the next time he loses, he gets out anyway. But if he keeps winning, I think he wants out by next summer anyway. Potentially April 12th in the National Stadium will be his last fight. And it's, just around the corner from his house. It's the show. It's the ring that he boxed in as a kid, and he gained his name, and he became the person he is in boxing through boxing in that ring and the stuff he used to do in that ring as an amateur. So I think it'd be lovely for him to go out in that ring, but he's two big tasks ahead of him if he wants to even get to that show. But I do believe if he keeps his head down, he does his thing, and everything goes the way he wants it to go, he'll walk away from this sport very happy and very content. And I think that's something that I'll be very proud of, to be able to say that I was able to help him deliver that, because, as I said, I am personal friends and we've been around him a long time, in and out of the sport. We coached, or we trained together under his father, and I've travelled to his fights before. We trained together and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think this will be a big 6 months ahead from it's really is a make or break for him. It's a big 6 months, and if he comes through it, he'll go away happy. Even if he can get one of the two or one of the three potentially, I think it will make life a lot easier for him when he does walk away.
Like it's just over a year, obviously, since Deco obviously fought in your first card. Obviously last year, and like at that stage, he was sort of going like that could be my
Again,
last fight. Like I've seen pictures of him the other day. Obviously, he's got abs and stuff again. Like it seems like I know Deco's always had like a love-hate sort of relationship with boxing, and probably hasn't taken it as serious at times as he probably should have. But like it seems to be in these last few months, like it's rekindled sort of some sort of fire in him. I guess this Celtic title, as I say, as we did say there, it probably does mean a lot to him. So he wants to give it 100% for what he's got left in boxing, and see what he can achieve.
Yeah, well, he's been listening to me since 2016 about how I've won more than him in boxing. So he'll definitely have to get that one back over on me. So, no, look, it does. Every belt means something to him. I know we discussed his belt there a couple of minutes ago on Holland, but every belt means something to a boxer. You know, but this one I think will be more special to him because this is in my opinion, a legitimate domestic title. The Celtic title seems to me at the minute that it's kind of one of the more sought after belts. Everyone seems to want it nowadays. And when they win it, a lot of people flaunt it and they're proud of it. And that's what it should be. That is what it should be. It is, I think it's a lovely belt. But like you see, Thomas, he I think he was in Daily Mount with it, and him and Craig were getting pictures with it and stuff like that. And Daniel then was getting the pictures with it and the whole lot. Like, people have to start putting meaning on these belts. And that's why I like to see that, it's not easy to get these belts because the BUI don't make it too easy with opponents. They don't just approve rubbish for belts, for these belts. And I think it puts more value on them. And like even this opponent, Jake Tinklin, we couldn't really get a welterweight opponent for him. So we went across the water, and Jake, in my opinion, put up a good fight against Senan. He's the kind of fighter that I want for Deco. He's someone that comes forward and puts pressure on him, and he has to be fit and he has to box and do what Deco does, and that's why I think the opponent's perfect for him.
Yeah, I guess you sort of the question mark. I know in the past, and hopefully Deco won't mind me saying, like, he was obviously schooling Archie Sharp in a fight, like after 5 or 6 rounds, like the gulf in class was, and then he just moment of lost his concentration, and obviously it changed. So like Jake Tinklin won't give him an opportunity to rest on his laurels, and that'll hopefully bring out the best in Deco.
He's physically stronger though, obviously with the weight, but you look at Deco, you stand beside him, you go, how the hell did you ever make 59 kilos? Super feather. I know he was in camp with him before, and I'm sure he's honestly openly said it before. He never done the weight properly when he was doing super feather. He starved himself, he drained himself, he drained all the water out, and he wouldn't have hydrated himself and refueled himself properly back then either. I was in camps with him for the likes of Jono and Archie and things like that. And I used to look at him and I used to watch him and I used to try to say things to him and that, but look at Deco knows Deco, and over the years, he killed himself to make that weight, and he never refueled properly, never fucking rehydrated properly. So every time we get into the ring, I'd say his brain was empty with water, and you could see it in them fights. His boxing ability got him so far, and then the body started tiring, and then he used to get clipped, and when he got clipped, he was getting chinned and stuff like that. And I put that down to more so the killing himself and the draining himself of fluids and things like that. Whereas now, like, we had a weight plan for this and sent it to him 7 weeks out. He hit it every single week, no issues whatsoever. Every single week, he was underweight a lot of the weeks, came down. He's physically strong and healthy at the way he's been eating meals, eating everything. And I actually watched him sparring last week. He was sparring with Tony Bates last week, who's 12 or 13 and all. He's been fighting regularly over in that Russia scene, and he done a number on him last week, and he looked strong and physically strong. To the extent that we had to pull Tony out of the ring. So, yeah, I'll be confident. I'm very confident.
It's obviously I think I sort of said the other day. It's sort of in some ways it's a next generation card, and obviously a lot of people obviously be looking at Deco as like a father figure for the card. We've obviously already discussed Paul. You've obviously two debutantes obviously on the card. You've obviously hijjah mcmahon and obviously a late replacement Barry mcreynolds. Podge Collins in the card, Richie O'Leary back, Cain Lewis, and I would say on paper, obviously, it looks like it's a really, really good fight against Tempura. Main names again here, Marusi. Obviously, I've seen him fight
Yeah.
Colin Murphy last year in Galway,
Mm.
and he called Murphy in bad bother. I think it was the 5th or 6th round, and sort of had to reset himself and come again. Like, Cain's probably had that frustration where he's wanted title fights, and again, as he seemed to be having these problems, an Irish fighter's not wanting to fight. You haven't been able to get an opponent for Cain for a Celtic title, so like that frustration might boil into the fact that he might pressure himself into something. So like this isn't an easy fight for him on Friday.
No, well, okay. I think from previously, I don't make easy matches. I don't plan. It's about entertainment. It's about people coming watching fights and being entertained by boxing. I don't want to be going to a show, or I don't want to be putting on a show where 4 or 5 of the fights are all first round knockouts or second round knockouts, and they all fall over, and it's boring and predictable. I always try to bring in fighters that look in shape, and get in and fight as hard as they can. So, look, again, there's nobody in the country that's willing to fight Cain. There's no one in Scotland that was willing to fight Cain, Wales that was willing to fight Cain, and it's hard because the kid just wants to fight. He just wants to fight. He wants to step up. So I just said to him, look, like Paul, I said, look, I had a good chat with him and just said, look, this is a plan for you. So we have a plan built for him. I think this is a tough fight. It's another guy coming in with a positive record, so it's a step up for Cain, like Paul, and come through this. And if no one in Ireland is willing to step up in February or April, but if no one's willing to step up in February, we have an opponent ready for Cain. I think he's 11-0 with 7 or 8 knockouts. He's a tough opponent for him. It'll either be February he'll fight him, or April he'll fight him, depending. We're trying to get a title on the line for it, so I just need to get it confirmed before we can announce it. But he has to come through Friday, and if he doesn't come through Friday, like what I said a few minutes ago, it's reset and start again. But very confident again. He's a fantastic fighter, fantastic attitude, very professional, and he will come good in the sport. He will get that bit of luck when the time is right, I'm sure.
Obviously, 2024 has been a year of obviously quite a lot of new domestic champions. Obviously, we have two fighters that done the double as well. Obviously, one in the south and one in the north. Obviously, Senan, obviously Celtic and Irish in the south, and really Celtic and Irish in the north. Like, it seems to be a year of building a lot of these domestics, and probably in some ways, Jay, you're a lot to thank for that. But this is your 6th show of the year. Like, the amount of champions been created through. I guess it's the 16th, 17th show this weekend, with the amount of domestic champions we've had. Like, it's showing that the next level are coming through. Like, that conveyor belt's constantly rolling, whether it's yourself or it's Jamie Conlon or it's Tom Loeffler, whoever's running these cards. Like, the conveyor belt of champions is still continuing to come through. I think we've had 20 or 21 new belt holders in Irish boxing this year. So, and there's probably maybe still a couple more to come out of that as well. So, your big thanks to, probably in some ways, to you for some of that as well.
Yeah, it would have been great if the activity had been going the way it was going last September. I wouldn't have had to come into this sport or into this game, to be honest. But yeah, look, it's been a good year. It's been a very difficult year, and as I said, I only came into it because I was training with the lads who were all let down last September, and I just seen. I said, look, I wonder if there's anything I can do for the lads. Done the one show, and after that, I kind of was asked, really, a lot of people were saying, would you not continue? Would you not keep going? Would you not do this? And I just said, let's have a go at it. And to be honest, since last September, when I kind of agreed to come into this game, it seems to have taken off. Obviously, everyone seems to be doing shows now. So, it's a good thing. It's a lot of new pros, which is great. We've signed a good few, but there's other pros popping up, and that's coming from the activity, I don't care if someone signs with me or signs with someone else. Obviously, I like to sign fighters and that as well. Look after them, guide their careers and the whole lot. But there's a lot of kids turning pro now and signing over, and that's great to see, because in theory, I don't want this routine continuing and continuing. We've broke the mold, I feel, on some fronts in what we're doing. And the first thing I said when I started was I wanted entertaining fights. And I said on the first press conference, it will take time to build all these new fighters. Like, how many fighters were debuting last November, and look at them now. You've got like young Matthew fought for an Irish title. You've Glenn's at 5-0. I think Oisin 4. Paul will hopefully be 4 this week. John Boyd's 4. They're all 4-0s, 5-0, 6-0, 7, 6s. And even there, Senan was 5-0, wasn't doing an awful lot. He was just chipping away. He was a bit upset, a bit annoyed. If you remember, we had a big major argument, a dispute, should I say, or disagreement on his performance after last November. He was told, put your head down, you'll get your belts. That's what he wanted this year. He's got his 4 fights, 2 of them are title fights. He's ready to go again into 25, into big fights. So, yeah, there's been a lot of progression. But this constantly have to bring in journeyman after journeyman after journeyman after journeyman has to stop. It's okay if you're a kid, you're only beginning, you get your 2, 3s, and 4s. But see, when lads hit 4-0, 5-0, said it last November, they need to be ready to step up. There's too many of them. Not talking about just my stable, but everyone's stable. There's too many of them that just don't. The bill for journeymen to promoters is stupid, which in turn, in my opinion, just wastes the ticket money that the lads are selling. They should be making money. And that's what they need to do. They need to be willing to step up and fight and cut out them big costs. Journeymen are needed. They're valuable assets to boxing. They'll always be needed. And there's always a place for them. I'm not saying get rid of journeymen, because we all need journeymen, because we're constantly churning out new fighters who need journeymen to build to that 3, 4, 5 and up. But once you get there, we need to fight. My card in the stadium on April 12th, I'm planning on having 8 domestic fights. That's the plan for that card. And I've already sent a message out to my stable saying, April 12th, National Stadium card, if you want on it, tell me who you want to fight in the country. You've now till February or now till April to get yourself ready for it. So if you haven't had a 6-rounder, we'll get you a 6-rounder. And it's time then, because I'm talking to fighters who are 3, 4, 5, 6-0. They're ready to step up and fight a domestic opponent. Doesn't always have to be for belts. Could be a 6-rounder. Or it could be an 8-round Celtic title fight, etc. So sorry about that statement. So that's what needs to be done, But that's the way it has to go. We're now a year running, and April will be a year and 5, a year and 6 months running. So it's going to start growing, and that's when we start trying to keep up with the bigger cards in the UK, where they've got their 4 and 5. Sorry about that state. That's where we'll have big, good live cards with 4, 5, 6 domestic fights on it, and then you'll have your undercard fights like you do in the UK and on the bigger shows, where you have your 3 or 4 prospects just chipping away in the background.
Where you sort of mentioned there, sorry, just before we go on from that, where you sort of mentioned, obviously, the getting past that level with journeyman, like we're seeing so often now, like I hope you don't mind me saying this, Jay, but like we have struggles with trying to get opponents for fighters and get opponents at the right levels for fighters sometimes, because so many more of experienced professionals are using journeymen as a level to get back the winning ways rather than probably taking other fights. So like it's people that's making their debuts or people that's in their first or second or third fights are having to step up sooner because journeymen aren't available, because some guy there it's 16-3, it's lost his last fight, wants to get a win to get back in the title fight, is using journeyman the wrong way.
Well, no, but to be fair to that, I do get where you get lads like that coming back off a loss, need a win, and they'll go and get a journeyman win. I don't mind that. That's something I don't mind. I don't really have no problem with that. And the reason I don't have a problem with that is because, they've lost, they're down, and they're being told, look, to get back up, if you get a win, we can get you back in at this level. It's not the level you were at, but we're getting you back in. You get an area title, or you get an international title or something like that, depending on the level. So I don't mind that area. My thing is when a lad 6-0, 7-0, 8-0, and they just constantly want to roll off journeyman. What's the point? I'd be sick in the face looking at it, like, you know what I mean? And especially the lower level lads, bringing in some of the lads they bring in, like, gee, some of the journeymen are brilliant out there. They can beat anyone they want, but they play the game, and I get that. But they'll test your lads and they'll ask questions of them, and they'll ask you sometimes before the fight, what do you want out of this fight? And I'd say to them, try win. Are you sure? And I'd say, yeah, try win. Or you'd say, look, put pressure on this lad, walk him down, let me see what he has, sees he got on in the tank, blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that. But these lads that are coming in and had a show recently, and a lad was on the ground 5 times in the first round. What good is that? You ain't getting nothing out of that. Pointless. And it's not the point, just pointless in your career because you're learning nothing, you're gaining nothing. But you've paid for this lad. You're probably handing him a 6-round opponent, you're probably handing him 2.5 grand purse, flights, accommodation, him and his coat, meal money. For what? What are you getting out of that? You're getting absolutely zero out of it. Nothing. Pointless. It's a waste of your money. There's no benefit to it. And no one is interested in it. Your opponent, your fans come to watch it, they look at it and go, oh, really? Next time you're selling tickets, are they really going to go and watch that? where they got to watch it for 2 minutes in the ring. You didn't get any entertainment, nothing whatsoever. Not for me, not my style. It really actually annoys me, it does. So probably better off moving on from the journeyman talk.
We'll move swiftly on from here then, Mills, before we get you off on a rant on a Monday. You've obviously you've officially announced one show obviously for February, and obviously it's a change of venue. You're coming to Belfast and doing the Devonish along with Kinnock Boxing. You've obviously then posted online, obviously, about the stadium, which we talked about there for the 12th of April. So you've planned two shows already. I guess this time last year you'd already put out a string of sort of plans and aspirations. So like you're starting off pretty much the first third of 2024 with obviously a card in the Devonish in Belfast, and you're looking at potentially 8 domestic fights in the stadium in April. So like a great start to 2025 as well coming.
Yeah, we're actually doing another show as well. The artwork hasn't been done and gone out yet for it, but we're doing a show the week after Belfast as well in Dublin, February 15th. So we have two shows within 7 days. Because what's happened is the plan was to go to Belfast. Ideally, I'd be happy to stay in Dublin, but I love Belfast. I've always loved it for years. Going up there, traveling up there, going up for weekends with the missus, going up to boxing events. Before I was even promoting, before I was even boxing, I was going up there. I remember bringing my daughter up there years ago to one of the press conferences. Oh, I can't remember the card now. It's that long ago. And getting pictures with all the lads with my daughter. She only a tot at the time. She's 18 now. That's how long back it is. I've always loved Belfast. But I've signed a couple of Belfast lads, and I said it to you last year. I can't sign someone. Like last year I signed Matthew and Glenn and then Senan and Tony. I can't sign them people and not be able to be in control of their careers. It's all good and well getting them on another show up there and working with other promoters up there and getting one or two of them out, but I can't wait for another promoter to put on a show to then ask if there's availability, and if there's not, then I'm waiting and looking around to see when someone else might do a show to get these lads out. So if I have someone signed in an area, well, then I got to need to do shows in that area for them. And that's why the plan was to go to Belfast. I wanted to bring John Boyd home, and then we got hijjah on board. So that was that. A great relationship with Dennis Morrison up there. And we had met and we had chatted, and he has Gary Arthurs. So now all of a sudden we've got 3 fighters. And I've obviously got a good relationship with Ian Cochran, and he has a number of fighters up there. So he was saying, geez, we could get a couple of my lads out. And I said, yeah, look, no problem. So all of a sudden, I was planning on putting kind of half of the South lads on and half Belfast lads and just doing the card. And that just took off. It's near enough a full Northern Ireland card, which is great. You know, I'm really, really delighted. There's a couple that aren't from the north on it. Sam obviously has one of his guys on it, at least one of his guys on it, which will be announced this week as well. But then I was looking at it going, okay, well then with me South lads, you know, some of them are fighting 29th, but there's not an awful lot of my card, not an awful lot of my fighters on the 29th in the stadium or in the warehouse. Like, so I kind of looked at it and said, Oisin hasn't been out in a while, Glenn hasn't been out in a while. You know, Senan will need to be out. There's a few, and I was going right, and then I had the Peter and Jason obviously needing to reschedule that, and there was a bit. So I said, you know what, we got to put a card on for the lads in Dublin and the South in around February, and the dates to keep it away from the stadium date on April 12th. I said, look, let's do February 15th. I thought the 1st of February was too close to Christmas. It didn't give them really an awful lot of time. That extra week would help them. The extra 2 weeks would really help them. So we said we go to 15th of February, and that will get certain people up to eligibility for certain titles and things for the stadium. It will also make a pathway for other fights to happen in the stadium once some of the lads come through the show on February 15th. So yeah, we've got our first part of the year boxed off now, and first third of the year boxed off with February 8th, February 15th, and April 12th.
Great start there. I wasn't expecting obviously the February 15th card. Like I know now I'm saying that, like obviously you've done cards on your birthday, you've done cards on your missus' birthday, you're doing a card the day after Valentine's Day. So, like, is this your way
Yeah,
of taking the missus out for the night? Just take her to the show
no, I'm
instead?
actually the February 8th card is the day before her birthday next this year, and then February 15th is the day after Valentine's Day. So it's what more could she want? She's getting treated to stay in a hotel for these events, these birthdays all the time. Now Valentine's Day, she's going spoiling her rotten, to be honest.
The next thing you'll be doing a Christmas show.
Yeah, don't know if to sell tickets for that one though. Oh, maybe if you
It's
got
who would play
TV
Santa
cover.
though.
Maybe if TV covered it,
Yeah, definitely
you might be
worthwhile.
able to do Christmas Day. What about that?
Christmas Day would be good now. Well, Boxing Day
Christmas
is
Day.
obviously the perfect day for it, isn't it?
Yeah, good work. But yeah, no, the February card could be a busy card though, to be honest, because there's a lot of lads I've been speaking to. Obviously, Peter and Jason will reschedule that for February 15th. That's for the Celtic title. The winner of that will, if once there's a suitable opponent there, will fight for the Irish title on April 12th.
Just picking this back up with Jay again. Unfortunately, Zoom only gives us a 40 minute time frame, and um, unfortunately, sometimes there's more to talk about than a 40-minute one. So, thanks, obviously, if you're sticking with us at this point. Jay, we were sort of discussing, you were rematching, you're obviously rescheduling, sorry, Peter Carr and Jason Harty, obviously, for your February 15th show. And obviously, I'm guessing that's going to be the warehouse again, is it, on the 15th of February?
Yeah. Well, as I said last year, warehouse will always be kind of our base where we build fighters and we get ready for bigger cards. That was the plan for year two, to do say a show or two in the warehouse, then go to the stadium, then come back, build another couple, or lads have to get a win if they've lost, or get them ready and eligible for another couple in the warehouse, go back to the stadium. So that's the plan. Going to throw Belfast in the mix as well. Once February 8th goes to plan, and I don't see a reason why I wouldn't. Actually excited about that, to be honest.
Have you any other sort of fights in the pipeline? I guess when you probably it probably doesn't take somebody with a lot of boxing knowledge to sort of look at potentially it's supposed to be Dago and Senan previously for the welterweight Irish title. That obviously didn't happen. Dago wins obviously on Friday night to become the Celtic champion. Senan still holds the belt at welterweight as well. So like obviously I don't want you sort of getting in any bother, but sort of looking too far ahead. But is that a fight you would probably like to reschedule for 2025?
Well, boxing's boxing. If Deco wins the fight on Friday, which I'm confident he does, and I'm hoping he does, he's mandatory for the Irish title at welterweight. Senna's the champion. So it looks to me like I don't see what else Deco will want to do next, bar fight Senna. And I know Senna was open to the fight the first time round. There was some personal issues around that camp that we had to pull Deco from that fight, and Senna was happy be away. Everyone's no problem with that. So, as I said earlier, Deco has a job to do, and that job is Friday night Jake Tinklin. And if he comes through that fight, I'm sure we could sit and chat and see if we can get both parties to the table again and do a deal on that again, because that was ready, that was done, it was in works. And yeah, I think that fight is a natural fight to come next, and then I'd be liking the winner of that fight then to push on to a bigger fight on April 12th.
Like obviously, I guess Senan's holding on to obviously the welterweight title. Obviously, he was supposed to fight Dave Ryan next week in Waterford, and obviously that hasn't worked out. Where he was looking to go back down and become a two-weight Irish champion. So obviously, I'm holding on to that belt. That's his bargaining chip at the end of the day at the minute, isn't it? Obviously, that's the thing that probably guarantees him a bit more money as a champion. Speaking obviously on Waterford, obviously, Tyrone McKenna and obviously Dylan Moran, obviously headlining the card, like crazy card. I think there's like 16 fights on the card. Like, how do you see the sort of main event? Like, I guess sometimes Jay, you've no problem sometimes giving your opinion out. So sometimes you're the better one to ask, and sometimes some of the boxers they're scared they put their foot on it and somebody fall out of them. But you have always an opinion and you're never scared to share of it. How do you see that fight going next week? Obviously, Dylan obviously beat Owen O'Neill, stopped them, and obviously around in Belfast. Tyrone was obviously beating the same card with mcmahon. Obviously had a big body shot. Like, how do you see that main event going next week?
Yeah, look, I'll give you an honest opinion. My honest opinion on that fight is I've trained with Tyrone as well. Like I have a personal relationship with Tyrone. I get on well with Dylan. I wouldn't be personal good friends or anything like that. But I have respect for Dylan. I like what he does. Well, look, if you're asking me to be honest, I don't see unless Dylan brings something to the table that we haven't seen before. I don't see how he beats Tyrone. That's me being honest. It's straightly honest. And I know, look, I know Dylan and his team wouldn't be happy with me saying that, but you've asked me to be honest, and I'm not going to sit in the fence and just say things for the sake of it. I just don't see how he beats Tyrone at welterweight. Tyrone, Tyrone struggled to make 140 for the last while. He had to kill himself to do it, and that's why in his last fight he was taking body. He couldn't take a body shot. He couldn't. You could have tipped Tyrone the stomach, and he couldn't take it. If Tyrone has done a camp, which he says he has, comes back and is 100%. He's tuned in. He's focused. I just think, like what Tyrone has said in his interviews, like he's been through it all. You look at his career, and I know he's coming on in his career and he's getting on his career, but I just don't see, how he doesn't win the fight. I think he definitely has a better chin than Dylan. That's 100% sure. I don't think Dylan's known to be this massive puncher. I know we got rid of Owen, but look, let's not go over Owen. Fight Owen didn't look really in great condition going into that fight, to be honest. So I can't really, and like Dylan said about his fight the year before, you can't really judge anyone on a round. You know what I mean? It's a lot of unluckiness comes into it as well. And Dylan done a fantastic job. Look what he's after getting now. He's after getting his homecoming. He's after getting, big backing down there with the TV and all. So it's great. It's brilliant for him. But I just looking back on both their careers. I know Dylan said he's been in the trenches and all, but I look at it and I look at both their careers, and I look at all the boxers in Ireland's careers, and I look at who they fought on. I don't see where Dylan's been in the trenches in his career. That's being straightly honest. I just don't see it. I don't see any fight that he's had to dig deep 4, 5, 6 rounds in, dig deep, cut, hurt, down, got back up, anything like that, and had to dig deep and come through. And he could make a lure of me. But I have seen Tyrone do it. I've seen Tyrone up in Falls Park. I think it was Falls Park, chinned by what was it? The fella who stopped Cully.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the name because it's brought
Well,
one
it's
from my
left me.
memory as well.
It's
Jose
left me.
Felix.
Jose Felix. I seen Tyrone down from that. I seen him get up. I seen him just turn into Mr. Professional and give him an absolute boxing lesson for the rest of the fight and win the fight comfortably. That's in the trenches. I seen him get absolutely clattered by Regis Prograis and just keep going and going and going and going. And I just think it's them fights that will stand to him. Unless Father Time has caught up with him, but I don't believe it has. I was training with Tyrone, last year. He still has a lot in the tank. I know he does. The last fight, I think Dylan has got this fight off the last 2 fights. Obviously, Dylan looked fantastic. Tyrone didn't look too great. I thought Tyrone was boxing really well, to be honest, at the start, and he just had he had nothing there. He couldn't take anything. He couldn't take any shot. Like I've seen Tyrone get clattered in the gym and spar and absolutely lifted out of and spar. I've seen him spar with Cully, Sean McComb, Paul Ryan. I've seen him spar all the lads and take heavy shots and keep coming forward. And look, people are sleeping on the fact that the fight before that was at welterweight, and he was in with Lewis Crocker. Is Lewis Crocker all of a sudden become feather fists? Because in my opinion, Lewis Crocker is a big puncher. And the fight before that, which was it last year? This time last year, I believe.
Yeah.
Was it early this year, or was it just? It was either side of Christmas, wasn't it?
It was. We're just coming up a year next week, year next
Yeah,
Monday. Date wise,
yeah,
obviously Tyrone and Crocker.
yeah. And am I wrong in thinking that Crocker absolutely hit Tyrone with everything but the kitchen sink and that, and there was no budging him? Now, again, I don't think Dylan's known to be a big puncher. So if Crocker couldn't do any damage to him, over the length of time he was in the ring with him. I don't see how Dylan does. And I think Dylan's only way of winning this fight would be by potentially stopping Tyrone. Because I do believe if Tyrone wants to box, he would definitely be a higher level boxer. That's my opinion. That's where it's at. May the best man win the fight. But if you're asking me to put my money on it, I just think experience, chin, boxing, I just don't see how Tyrone loses the fight. But again, it's a fantastic night for Dylan. What he's done, he said he wanted to bring boxing back to Waterford. He's done it, and I just hope he goes out and has a great night. I hope Waterford have a great night, and I hope everything goes successful for Neil and Jamie, who are putting on a fantastic show down there. 16 fights. I don't envy them at all on that one because the trouble I'm having a card that has 8 fights on it. So, but look. No, credit to them, and I really look forward to the fight. I think it's a great fight. I think it's a really good fight. I think Dylan is definitely going to have the bit between his teeth because he doesn't want to let himself down. He's brought it home. When you bring it home, you want to win, and best of luck to him. I hope for him it does. But again, you asked me my opinion, and my opinion is my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? It's the experience. Everybody's going to kind of Tyrone's experience. Like even if you go back to Chris Jenkins' fight, he had a 10-round war and he stood in the pocket and went with it and took the very best that Chris Jenkins had and still laughed at him and still came forward. So like all that experience mounts up on Tyrone's side, and it's up to Dylan to prove he belongs at that level. And obviously, like a major statement for him to beat Tyrone. So it probably comes as a shock in some ways if Dylan was to beat Tyrone.
Yeah, but take Crocker, Progray, the mcmahon fights, the Jenkins fight, the cathal fight. Take them all out of the equation. Go right back. Tyrone had the domestics with Sean Cray, the domestics with Jake Haney. They're, in my opinion, more than what Dylan has done in a domestic front where, you've got that bit of needle. It's a domestic fight. Well, Dylan hasn't had a domestic fight. Not that domestic fights mean everything, but they give you that little bit when you're going into a fight. You've had that domestic. You've lived it. You've been there. You've seen it. Tyrone had done that twice early in his career, let alone going off to world level and fighting all these world level lads and European level lads. And he had the golden contracts thing, so I don't know. Like, again, I'm not saying Tyrone is Floyd Mayweather, but I've seen Tyrone. I know him. I trained alongside him. Yeah, and I just go back to this time last year when he fought Crocker. Unless he has aged massively in the year, how I don't know. I don't know. And as I said, every fighter sometimes needs that breakout fight. Dylan hasn't had the domestics. He hasn't had them world level, European level fights. Is this his night to introduce himself onto the scene and say, yeah, no, people, I am on this level? And if he is, and if he does, fair play to him and credit to him, because he's been saying it for long enough, and now this is his moment. And if he goes and does it, well, credit to him. He's an Irish fighter, and I do respect, but I would respect that he's done it the way he's done it. But again, you asked me my opinion on the fight and where the two of them are at the minute in both of their careers, in their last 2 or 3 fights. I just can't see past Tyrone. I don't see past Tyrone at all. But every fighter has to have their day. And this could be Dylan's night where he introduced him to the scene. I'm sure the lads will have something lined up bigger for him next. And he could be one of Ireland's big names now moving forward. So, who knows?
Speaking obviously of Floyd Mayweather, Irish versions of Floyd Mayweather, our greatest ever athlete, our greatest ever boxer, Katie Taylor. What an occasion! Like, with 74 million people tuned in on Netflix. Obviously a lot of people, like some of my posts obviously went viral sort of in some ways on Facebook with obviously the Puerto Ricans and Americans and stuff like that, saying that Katie cheated, the judges obviously done her a favour and everything else like that. But like real boxing fans and like Shakur Stevenson, Terence Crawford, Roy Jones Jr., everybody, obviously all the big names all said Katie won. Like, unfortunately sometimes head clashes happen, particularly when you have an orthodox and southpaw fighter. But I thought Katie probably rolled back a couple of years at how accurate she was in her punches. Like at times, like she bullied the bully.
Katie done what Katie does. She got in the ring with a girl, like what she's done, Pursuing, Cameron, now Serrano. She gets in, she has a fight. It's a very close fight. Obviously, Cameron, she lost. She get in. That lady's boxing IQ is just so high and so good. It's ridiculous. She's in that ring. She's not only fighting the opponent, she's studying the opponent. Because you can see that, because every time she rematches someone, she just turns it up a level. The girl is 38, same age as myself. We played schoolboy football, the same age groups when we were young age, and when it was no girls and boys football, it was mixed. So we're the exact same age, and I look at what she does, and I just, hats off to her. Like, she, as I said, she's in that ring. When she first fought Pursuing, it was a war. It was a war that it shouldn't have been. And a lot of people said, it was a robbery and the whole lot. Well, look, I would call it a close fight, and close fights can go either way. But look what she done in the rematch. She came out and she just went back to her box and schooled her for the first half of the fight. Then it went back into a war, but she was well ahead at the time. So that was the same. Cameron, I felt, first fight, yeah, she didn't do enough in the first fight. She looked quite flat on her feet and stuff like that. Second fight, I thought she looked really, really good. Yeah, it was a close fight, but it was a close fight as far as close fights go, but she won the second fight. She definitely won the second fight. But as for the other night, the commentary was a shambles. It was an absolute disgrace. It was the worst I've ever seen on a boxing event. If you watch the fight without the commentary, Katie won the fight and she won the fight comfortable. And that's been me being honest. But at 38 years old to do that, and some people are young 38s. Katie's not a young 38 because she's been in the sport for so long. And as they report on and all about how she used to have to box boys in her early part for things, that would take time. That would take a bit of time off you. That's a little bit harder than what the young girls coming through now would. But she's consistently churning out result and performance after performance. And, who's to say what she does next? We can all have an opinion. My opinion would be I'd love her to walk away from the sport and just go completed it. People are saying trilogy and all,
same opinion.
But my thing, and people are saying, trilogy and da. I would love to hope that, I'd love to know and hope that Katie is financially stable for the rest of her days, because if she's not, it's an absolute disgrace to her managing, promotional, and the boxing world in general, because that lady, for what she's done for boxing, both amateur and professional, should be financially stable for the rest of her days, and so should any kids she may have or grandkids she may have, because she has changed the whole dynamics of boxing. And that's where I don't know what else she has to achieve in this sport, because people are saying, the trilogy, and it'd be great for the trilogy. What would be great about it? The fans get to watch a war again. She's already beaten her twice. So if she lost the trilogy, well, then it's 2-1. It's all of a sudden you have to go to another one and another one. It's just, in my opinion, it would be, and again, that lady has earned the right to do whatever she wants when she wants. She can box another 10 years if she feels fit, and she'll still have the watching audience she has, and she'll still have the fan base she has and the whole lot. But I'd love to see her go now and walk away and say, I completed it. The one time I lost, I fixed it, and that's it. I'm done. I'm finished, and that for me would be just it'd be a bigger achievement than actually going again.
I think as you'll know as well as I'll know, obviously everybody's going to keep mentioning this Croke Park thing, and that's probably maybe the one thing that's probably still in her mind. It could still happen. I know Eddie Hearn said, she wants a trilogy fight with Serrano, which was probably more money orientated, but what most valuable promotions and Jake Paul bring into it, but obviously the rematch, the trilogy fight with Cameron as well. But like, if Croke Park hasn't happened already, I don't think it personally it's ever going to happen. No matter who puts the money up.
Yeah, but not even that's the. Obviously, I wasn't part of the promotion of the last Katie Taylor show in the Tree Arena. But from what I was led to believe, I know there were still tickets on sale the week of the show. And I believe there was tickets floating around the week of the show. Some of the promoters were giving out tickets and stuff like that. So that would tell me that the 10,000 tickets for the Tree Arena didn't sell out like that. Now, if you're not selling out the Tree Arena like that, how in God's name are you going to get to 80,000, 90,000? Now, that's not me saying Katie wouldn't attract a big fan and she wouldn't have the big fan base and the whole, but I just don't see how you go from, just getting the 10,000 in the Tree Arena or just short of it to then all of a sudden multiplying that by 8 or 9, because that to me just doesn't make sense. So that's why I don't think we've seen the 3 arena. That's genuinely in my opinion on why I don't think we've seen the 3 arena. Now, with Jake Paul involved, there's opportunities there that he could fill Croke Park. I'm sure there's an Irish athlete that he'd like to get in the ring with that would definitely do Croke Park, and Katie and Serrano could be a co-main or something like that. So that's the only way, in my opinion, that Croke Park gets done for Katie to fight, and that would be with Jake Paul fighting against another Irish athlete that would definitely be looking at selling Croke Park, and I think that would make sense for that promotion, and I think that would make money for that promotion, and therefore I think Katie also could get paid the money she deserves to fight, and she'd get her fight in Croke Park. To me, that's the one way it works and the only way it works, and without that, Croke Park, in my opinion, will never happen.
It needs, unfortunately, that the fights that you don't want to happen, as pure boxing fans, the fights you don't want to happen, and I know Jake Paul's done great things in boxing, and obviously, delivering obviously Katie and Serrano their biggest paydays and stuff they did, and giving people eyeballs, and like people wouldn't have probably tuned in to that Netflix card if it wasn't for Jake Paul and the Mike Tyson sort of charade sort of went with it. But in some ways, for Croke Park to happen, unfortunately, you have to dangle, the comedy effect to it as well.
Yeah, look, and that fight that we discussed there, that fight is probably it's definitely a better fight than the last Jake Paul fight, and I think it would be probably as equivalent, if not better, than Jake Paul and Tommy Fury in that area, in that market. I think it's a better fight. But again, let's say, I don't know.
But I guess obviously time will tell obviously what Katie decides to do next, and hopefully she makes her own decision and not a promoter or a manager. It's her own decision. She's 38 years of age now. She has to go and live her own life. She did nearly 30 years in this sport. So there has to come, unfortunately, a day, and it's better to leave at the very top than to leave when it's not in your own terms.
Exactly. But again, she deserves to make the decision herself when the time's right.
Obviously, looking over, I guess 2024 is we're sort of getting to the end of the year. I guess what would sort of your probably your highlight sort of the year be like? Probably personally, obviously, with your own shows. What would you say was sort of in general? Probably, I guess in some ways, what would your fights of the year be? What would your sort of standout performances sort of be at 2024? Like you probably say fight of the year wrapped up with obviously Anto Cacace obviously becoming world champion. You probably say in the international sort of scene that one's tied up. But like, who would you sort of when you sort of look at domestic sort of level, who would you say like a domestic fight of the year being like with two double champions? And
well, I suppose you'd have to give it to Senan or Rudy. Like, I think they definitely deserve a Celtic and Irish champions. I think they definitely deserve it. Because I did have a chat with a couple of people about that, and I said, if Senan was to go to Waterford in that proposed fight and beat Dave Ryan for the 140 title, and I don't mean this in a bad way because the world title is just outrageous, but I actually think that would probably be a bigger year than Anto. And that would have been honest. Like, Anto's a legend. Don't get me wrong; he's an absolute gentleman. He's a legend. But I feel for the domestic lad to go and win a Celtic title against a lad. I think he was 11-1 at the time, and then be an unbeaten 7-0 or 6-0 guy, and then to go down and beat another unbeaten guy at another weight class. Three big domestic wins would have topped it. But yeah, look, I think I think it's fairly straightforward. Senan or Rudy would definitely have to get it, wouldn't they?
what about fight of the year? Obviously, we've actually quite a lot of great fights. Like not even like title fight wise. Obviously, the Sean Murray and the Shane Meehan fight, which was a war.
Yeah.
Like I think sometimes because the title wasn't attached to that, people forget about that fight, and if they probably didn't see the fight on TV sometimes, and I know your cards are available on pay-per-view, but sometimes people might not have seen them fights, and they then looked at the Brennans, the Cronins, the Farrell, the Kerr one sort of fights. Like probably in my opinion, I'd probably say Farrell Kerr maybe in Belfast, maybe number one, the one in the Ulster Hall.
I thought Tony McLean and Dave Ryan was a good fight.
Mm.
I thought that would have been as good as Farrell and Kerr. Especially the first 4 or 5 rounds. Dave went down on that in the second round. And Tony came out blistering speed in round 1, 2, tired in 3. Dave picked it up in 4 and 5, 6, 7, and 8, obviously. But yeah, I thought the first 4 or 5 rounds of that fight were explosive. I thought it was really good. Do you know it was another good fight that didn't really get, obviously because the opponent was a journeyman. Robbie Burke and your man Zabo or whatever his name was. Do you remember that fight when Burke got the bad cut?
Yeah.
There was blood everywhere, and Borky looked like he was behind. And did he go down?
Was there not? Was there not a point taken off?
Oh no, Borky got a point taken off, or Zabo got a point off, did he?
Yeah, I think he got a point taken off, and
that was an absolute cracker. Now again, it was only a thing, and you know it was another good fight as well. Peter Carr and Jordan Geraghty.
Yeah, really good fight.
Yeah, that was a good fight as well.
I think sometimes there's not a title attached to a fight. Sometimes people don't think it could be a fight of the year.
Yeah, there was some good ones throughout the year. All right, really good fights. Through the that was last year, actually November last year, so I won't even mention.
You're going too far.
No, some good ones, yeah.
Away from your own stable in 2025, is there any sort of, when you sort of started thinking your head and you're thinking of, because at this stage of the year, I'm now thinking of what fights I want to see domestic wise in 2025. Like, is there any fights away from your stable or any fights even within your stable you'd like to see made in 2025?
Offhand, I can't even think. I think absolutely.
I'll start you off with one I want to see: Sean McComb and Pierce O'Leary.
Just to decide that, that's a fight. I think that's the best fight this country could see. I just think it's most definitely two of Ireland's best 140s. Sean can do obviously 135 as well. I think stylistically it's a great fight. You got Pierce, who's so good at coming forward, big puncher and the whole lot, and Sean is so good in the back foot. Another fight that I think would be good as well. They're trying together and all, so I don't know how it would ever work, but Sean McComb and Gary Cully.
Yeah, prior to 2000, obviously, I know when Gary beat Joe Fitzpatrick, sort of 2019, sort of before they became sort of stablemates, it was like, it was gearing up towards that, and it was like, let's build it down the line. Like, I don't know if obviously Sean could still make lightweight, or obviously maybe they could have it like 138 or something like that, sort of in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's a good fight. Another good fight that I think would really be explosive would be Fergus Quinn, Peter Carr.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good fight. The two lads have a war. I would have said Shane McConnell and Peter Carr, but Shane McConnell is staying up at super middle. Maybe Shane McConnell and Kevin Cronin. Kevin's toughest they come. Fantastic performance in his last fight. Really, really hard done by. Really good performance. Showed a great bit of grit, determination, chin, and showed for a bigger guy and taller guy, he can box brilliantly on the inside. So I think him and Shane McConnell be a good fight.
I think it looks like Brennan and Cronin look like they're having a rematch in 2025 in MSG, and then whoever obviously wins that sort of moves forward. Like, it's sort of, maybe you look at other sort of ones around that 168 division. You've your Tommy Hyde, you've your Thomas O'Toole's. Like, I don't know if they
Cathal, what's his name?
Cathal Crowley as well, and you've even obviously you probably don't have as much light heavyweight. Like, it's Joe Ward's probably past that domestic stage. Like, I know Joe Ward recently said to me in an interview they wanted Conor Wallace, but Conor Wallace on the verge of a world title fight. So maybe, I don't know, down towards the end of 2025, maybe you could see that as a potential world title defense for Conor somewhere.
Conor, who's going to pay Conor?
Hmm.
When Conor wins a world title, who's going to pay him to fight Joe Ward? That's the problem.
It's one of them, isn't it? It's always a big
Joe's
risk.
like Sean McComb. He's too good for his own good. Look at Sean. Got robbed. We won't go into that, but he got robbed And the poor fella sitting at home with his hand, sitting on his hands because he can't get a fight. Too good for his own good, which is a disgrace.
Hopefully, fingers crossed that the boxing gods can work it out. And I know Barboza obviously won there last week, so hopefully Barboza now realizes I actually need to go back and fight Sean McComb if I'm going to go anywhere in my boxing career.
Not happening. Why would you though? Call a spade, Marty. If you got skilled by a fella and you're borderline world title, are you really going to revert back and go back and fight the fella who schooled you, took you to school?
You try and take a
It's
world
not going to
title
happen.
fight.
It's never going to happen. You get a world title fight, it's going to be worth X amount of thousand, and he's happy. He's set up for life, Whereas he goes back to Sean McComb, not going to get as much money. He gets beaten by Sean, and that's the end of him. Then he's kind of done. You know what I mean? So you can't really have. You can't really have that, So he's done his thing, and he's got out of there, you know what I mean?
Well, look, we'll leave it there. Obviously, we know we're hitting lunchtime now on Monday. Obviously, it's good. This isn't going to go public until Tuesday, obviously, because we've obviously the ringside membership. But you will watch it back later on today yourself, obviously as a ringside member. But look, obviously, I think you've spoken enough to me, enough for one day.
Just say on that as well, Steve. Just a message out to everybody on that. If I can say one thing that anyone takes out of this interview is we got boxing people that are genuine boxing people like yourself. You travel the length and breadth of the country to go to press conferences, weigh-ins, fight nights off your own back. That thing you've set up, the ringside membership for people to view your YouTube channels, even if you're not going to use your YouTube channels, every single professional boxer in this country should commit to that and sign up to it. It's €5, I think it is a month, £5 or €5 a month. Every single boxer signs up to that. That will cover your diesel costs, I'm sure, to get you around to a few more shows, which in turn helps promote their careers and grow their careers. And I think it's the least professional boxers could do to thank the likes of yourself and other news outlets that are doing this off their own back. So if anyone take nothing from the interview, just for every professional boxer out there, manager, promoter, sign up to this, lads, and help these guys out, because Steve can't afford to keep doing this and he has to go to work. Then he misses shows, he misses weigh-ins, he misses press conferences. Your fighters are going to miss out on getting that bit of publicity that's needed to help with getting sponsorships and to help to get media coverage. So if I can advise anybody, I'll just say, lads, look after the ones that look after us.
There we are. There's my part to clip of the interview. Anyway, thanks very much for that. But look, we'll see you on Friday night for obviously show number 7 of JB Promotions card. It's going to be another great night. We'll hopefully maybe catch up with you obviously after it as well, and then let you enjoy Christmas before we get ready for another big one in 2025.
Yeah, please God, me, and thanks very much again for all the support.
Not a problem, Jay. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, pal.
Cheers. Take care. Thanks.
See you,
Bye-bye.
pal.
Bye-bye. Bye.